Well, welcome back to the Timeline Ranch. It's a beautiful afternoon, no wind. It's been sunny all day. Temperatures are quite comfortable. The ranch is in exceptional drought. We had about a half inch of rain, 13 millimeters of rain this year, and that was about 9 months ago. So everything's pretty dry, pretty much in survival mode. But it's also a good opportunity to see where the water is trapped in the soil. So let's go for a walk. Take a look. I'm up here where I come to get a good signal to post videos, check YouTube, make phone calls, all that type of stuff. Got about an hour and a half before it gets dark. You can see the sun's getting close to going down behind that mountain there. I figured I'd start up here at the top. This is Lechuguilla. If you ever get kidnapped and blindfolded and dropped off in the desert and you see these, you know at least you're in the Chihuahuan desert. Of course, that's the biggest desert in North America, so good luck. They're all in survival mode along with everything else. You can see the outer leaves of this Lechuguilla are drying out. And what it's doing is slowly drawing the moisture back to the center core to try to stay alive until the next rain. Lechuguilla grow to about, I'll show you one that has already seeded so you kind of see the size that they get before they seed. But basically they just store energy up for years and years until they get enough to shoot out a seed stock, and then they die. This is one that matured and you can see the seed stock. But as you can see, the stalk was chewed off, and this was done by mule deer. They eat them like asparagus out here. You can see a few that made it, that were able to seed, that didn't get eaten. This is one here. All the seeds have dropped off of it. That's how Lechuguilla handles the exceptional drought. You can see all of them look about the same up here. This is hairy grama. It's alive, doesn't look like it. Way down there in the bottom, you'll still see a little bit of green. Of course, it's also going dormant because it's winter time. I don't know if you can see little hints of green down in there. The creosote bushes, they're very dry. The leaves just kind of fall off when you rub them. They can go about 2 years without any rain, and then they will die. They just slowly start dropping leaves until they don't have any and they're dead. This is the Vegetation dividends. You can see it's doing the same thing. The outer ends of the leaves are dying back, and the further down you go, the greener it gets. There's another one right there. Even from here you can see right along the pond there, it's much greener than everything else around here. There's still some water trapped down there. These Lechuguilla look a little bit better. There must be a little bit of water traveling underground still for them. Ocotillo look about like they do most of the time. No leaves. Unless it rains about an inch, they'll produce leaves. And then as it dries out, they'll drop the leaves. The stalk, as you can see, has a little bit of a green hue to it. It photosynthesizes through the stalk during the dry season to save its water. You can see what I'm working with here. All this is solid rock. In between the rocks is a little bit of actually fairly good soil. And it's from tens of thousands of years of the rock degrading and breaking down, along with the vegetation that grows in the soil and the cracks of the rock. All this slowly makes it down towards the valley, and the best spot to get it is right along the edge of the creeks where it deposits. These are resurrection plants. They look dead, and if you open up the center of one of these little balls, you'll see where it looks a little bit alive. If it rains, within an hour this thing will open up, and from the center it'll start to green towards the outer edges. These can live up to 10 years without water. It's a type of fern. You can see this prickly pear here, how it copes with it. The end leaves slowly start leaving their moisture to the inner leaves and dry out and die, and they'll drop off. It'll keep working its way back. You can see this one's starting to dry out here. So this pad here is absorbing the moisture out of it. Eventually this one will dry out all the way back to the root core if it gets that dry. You don't see that very often out here, that it gets this dry, but it's happening this year. The Sotal actually looks pretty good for some of them. Some of them are completely yellow except for the core. It'll do the same thing, draw its moisture back to the core to try to wait for the next rain. This is viscous acacia. The leaves are very dry on it. You can see they just break off as well. The leaves are dwarfed right now. Normally they would be a lot fuller than they are. This is skeleton leaf goldeneye. It's dropped all of its leaves. The root core is still alive though. Once it rains, it'll pop back. This Ephedra Nevada is getting a little bit more water than some of the other ones. It looks pretty green. And this one right here is not getting the water. Sotal looks pretty good there. This is in that little runoff stream that I built that first leaky weir there in. course, it didn't get much activity this year with a ½ inch of rain for the entire year. But you can see there was a little bit of water that pooled right there, judging by how the soil looks. This road fill that I built up over a few years' time holds quite a bit of moisture. You see this shrub's getting some water. It's still got quite a few leaves on it for this time of the year. You can see most of those prickly pear out there look pretty rough. This is Federer Nevada, and it actually looks very good compared to some of the other ones. Moisture is seeping out of this road fill and supplying it with a little water. But then you go another 5 feet out, and this prickly pear is extremely dry. You can see the pads are wrinkled, and you can see the inner veins of them. Almost all of them look like that out here that are away from the road fill. You can see the sotals that are out there away from the road are not getting as much moisture. They're starting to die back from the bottom leaves. This little creosote right here actually looks quite well because there's moisture trapped in this road fill. This yucca Faxoniana looks quite well, that is embedded in the road fill there. Compared to some of those other ones over there that don't have as much water available. I like this time of the evening. You get the play of the shadows on all the mountains as the sun sets. The mountains over here turn orange and then purple and then fade to just a shadow. So this is a skeleton leaf goldeneye right here. And it's in a little microclimate because it's on the east facing side of this bank, so it's getting a little bit more warmth, and it's getting water that's coming out of the road fill, so it actually looks quite well compared to the most of them around here. This is a little creosote bush that's also getting water out of this road fill. You can see it looks very well, nice and filled out, green, dark green. A little bit further down, We've got a good Fetter and Nevada specimen here. Right here beside the pad of the hydroelectric building, this creosote looks fairly good. Let's get a little water out of this fill. You can see this Yucca faxoniana is dying back to the center core because it's not getting much water. Here we are on the main creek that feeds the pond. This is the upper portion of the creek though. Creosote has some leaves, but you can see they're yellowing out, starting to drop off. All these look like that around here. This Yucca faxoniana has some deeper roots, so you can see it's looking pretty good still. This tar bush actually looks pretty good for this time of the year. Still has some green to it. They're drying out though. They'll start dropping. You can see a little closer to the dam I made over here though. Creosote look a lot better. A lot more green in there. It's a Fetter and Nevada is getting some water. You can see it looks nice and green. These yuccas look good. You can see all this is beat down real good from the javelina and the mule deer. The Barbary sheep coming through here, eating anything that has a little bit of greenery on it because it's pretty scarce this time due to the drought, exceptional drought. Here's one of my experimental mesquites, honey mesquites. I'm going to trim until it turns into a tree. This creosote looks pretty good. It's up here on the dam. Here we are at the pond. The Baccharis looks quite well along here where the water's traveling underground from that dam. They look a little drier on the other side of the pond. Let's go over there real quick. So there's our pond right there. Figured we'd start over here and walk towards where the water's been trapped in the pond. Creosote bush, you can see it's looking quite dry. All these look very similar right in here. As we make our way down, you can see there's some water trapped in the soil from the pond. This creosote looks considerably better, along with this Fetter and Nevada, that creosote. You can see as you go that way, this creosote doesn't have as deep of roots. This one doesn't have as deep of roots. This is the outflow of the pond. There's a little leaky weir here about 10 inches tall. I'm sure it's a beautiful sight when the pond fills up all the way. The water keeps seeping through this for about a week and a half afterwards until the pond reaches the level of this point here. Here's one of the pecan trees. Still has a few leaves even this late in the season. Of course, I have been watering them while I was here. It's going to have a long stretch coming up pretty soon though, about 5 months, that I'm not going to be here to water it. You see these creosote here are a little drier, but they're further back. Tar bush still has a few leaves on it. This one that's a little closer has more leaves. Tar bush. All these creosote through here have quite a few more leaves though, where the original body of the pond was, right here. It's been here for about 9 years now. This is our first pecan tree. It grew about 18 inches this year, even though it's been an exceptional drought. Still had a few leaves on it. The last trip I was out here about 2 weeks ago. We caught a freeze since then, so it dropped them. Baccharis, so still looks all right. Of course, it's an evergreen, and it's getting some water from the edge of the pond here. Baccharis silifolia. Some of these Baccharis are 2.5 meters tall now. Pretty happy with how this turned out. The retention wall that I built, both of these, this one and that one. This tar bush has some leaves. Still getting a little, they're dry, but still has some. You can see all these creosote have a good bit more leaves than if you go out a little further. They start to thin out. Been watering my Mission Texas almond trees. They still have a little green in the bark. The one here on the end still has a few very small leaves. It's in survival mode. You can see some very tiny leaves there on the top. Pretty happy to see at least 3 of the 9 trees I planted made it. And the further you get out here, the drier it gets. A little sparser and falling apart. And you can see they all look about the same. Just hanging on for the next rain. This little creosote right here has water seeping through along with water that was pooled in here in the little pond. Looks very good. This creosote over here is getting some water traveling underground as well. Here's our other honey mesquite that we're turning into a tree slowly. It picked up about 1 inch diameter. It's got a nice established taproot, tapping into some of this water from the pond. Well, I guess that's all I have for this little walk and talk, showing you what the ranch looks like in an exceptional drought. I'll see you on the next one.